How does Persona 3 Reload stack up against the mega hit success of Persona 5? Well, pretty good actually. This week's episode of the 20M podcast features our impressions of Persona 3 Reload so far and how, although a remake, it elevates the entire Persona franchise. We also cover some amazing independent games we played during Steam Next Fest, an annual celebration of games featuring demos of upcoming titles. And of course, we end the episode with Rino's, at this point, weekly segment of Genshin Impact, but this time we cover the Lunar New Year update. This is the 20M podcast.
Welcome to the 20M podcast, a show about video games and the people behind them. I am your host for today, Rino, and today I'm here with Arief. Hey, Arief.
Hello. Hey, Rino. How are you today? Happy Chinese New Year. Happy Lunar New Year.
Happy Chinese and Lunar New Year. It's a great time.
That's such an awkward, great. Okay.
I feel like we should have, if we were like high def podcast, we'd have like the overlay of like a lion dance should just kind of like move around below us like that, and then like lanterns just drop when we say it. But that's okay. That's good. We can imagine that that's happening.
I'm gonna call my VFX person right now. It's like drop like a couple $100 on. It's like, Rino has a specific request for the podcast. We have to do it.
I have a vision that needs to be executed just for this one podcast. But yeah, how's everyone doing? It is a very festive time. Mostly, I guess, in Malaysia and Japan, we don't celebrate this time, but I try to celebrate my culture here as much as I can. But it's also a great time for video games, as always. So let's do a quick recap of all the games we covered and all the recent stuff we've been doing in the last couple of weeks, and then let's just dive into what we've been doing more recently. So, last episode, Arief.
Last episode was like dominated by Star Rail, Star Rail
Yes.
2.0. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, so I think a huge chunk of last week's episode was about Star Rail because 2.0 dropped. It was the Penacony update. And a fun fact, do you know what Penacony gets its name from?
No, I don't.
It's an amalgamation of penal and colony, because I think it's supposed to be like a funny bit, because the place is like really magnificent, but the history of Penacony is that it was a prison of some sort.
Ah, okay, got it.
Yeah,
that's actually really cool.
that's where Penacony comes from. But we also talked about Ace Attorney.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite bits, because we've been covering Ace Attorney like very sporadically throughout the history of the podcast. Like a couple clips talking about friends here and there, and then finally we get to review Apollo Justice Ace Attorney trilogy and Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney trilogy. Which yes. I nailed the names this time compared to the previous.
Absolutely. Well done. No, that was a really fun episode, and one of the first rare times where we both played a game, a game at the same time, which is very cool.
Yeah, but then I think like my favorite thing about last week was like a first full content week at 20M, was collaboration with the Kampung Nerd Najmi when we reviewed The Last of Us Part 2. I think like all of this is just to like remind everybody that we're trying to get back, into our feed covering all the games, the spectrum of games that are coming out earlier. But man, like, can we just talk about that for a second? Like the 20M podcast has always revolved around like collaborating with people in games, interviewing folks and stuff like that. But man, can you believe we got Najmi the Kampung Nerd on our podcast?
I can, because I've been asking for it for like months now. I'm glad. It seems like folks really enjoyed the collab, and we're getting a lot of really great feedback, which is awesome. But I personally, every month, I'm like, Arief, let's collab with Najmi. Let's ask Najmi, Arief, when are we collabing with Najmi? And then like this thing happened, and it was like the perfect storm, I feel, because it's like an IP that means so much to both of you. It's quite an emotional episode as well. But like, well done, and thank you again, Najmi, the Kampung Nerd, for collaborating with us.
Yeah, honestly, it was a very emotional conversation. It was a very long conversation, but I think like that's the point, and I really appreciate he like stepped out of his usual content to speak English as opposed to Bahasa this time. And it was just, I'm just so thankful to share that stage with him, because he's an awesome creator. And The Last of Us Part 2, amazing like game for like meaning for the both of us. So just a great last week for the 20M podcast.
And I think this will be a great this week for the 20M podcast as well, because we're going to be talking about another IP that is very near and dear to your heart. What are we talking about today? We're
talking about Persona 3 Reload from Sega and Atlas, which I'm really excited to share. And thank you, Sega, for the codes for the Persona 3 Reload review codes.
Did you match your background to the overall?
Oh my god, I didn't even realize. Yeah, they were very Persona 3, the Persona 3 blue theme, huh? You clearly didn't. Step up, Rino, step up.
I want to acknowledge that I haven't started yet, and I know I have a lot of Persona friends in my group, and and I'm still playing Persona 5, like, more than like 10 years later. And the joke in my community a few months back was like, all right, you've got like 4 months to finish Persona 5 before Persona 3 comes out. Persona 3 has come out and I've not finished Persona 5. So I'm going to out myself early on. But I am very interested just because I've seen a lot of noise about it. People are especially loving the UI, as per usual. I think it's the same people who made the Persona 5 one. But also, what I hear is that Persona 5 is like better gameplay, but Persona 3 has better story, and then the reload is like a combination of both. But I'll let you talk. You've been the one who's been playing.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, like, that's a really solid kind of opening to that, right? And so the caveat is that, like, so Persona 5 was my first Persona game, much like a lot of people. And I didn't finish Royal. So the caveat is there. I played base vanilla Persona 5 and I loved the hell out of it. And I told this story so many times about on the podcast, but I have not played Persona 4 Golden. I'm sorry, Tosh Bunny. Like, I haven't touched it yet. Thank you for gifting that to me, but it's been a long time. But everybody always talks about Persona 3. So I think like my high level thing is, I also want to caveat this by saying I'm about 10 hours in the game, and I think I intend to cover a bit more of this on the podcast as we like go through the title. But the first like segment of this entire game is epitomized by saying it takes all the best things from Persona 5 and applies it to a game that was on the PS2 and a little bit older, and create something that is just so magical and streamlined and modern and new wave that, when I say I wasn't going to get like hooked, I knew it was going to be good. But I wasn't be like, hey, Persona 5, I spent so many hours in Persona 5, like every corner of that map feels so meaningful to me. This isn't going to happen with Persona 3. It's a little bit more limited. There's less like areas overall. It's an older game. We'll see where it goes. And they got me. The gameplay loop for Persona 3 is just so ridiculously addicting. But I think like just in a real way, just to give like the high level thoughts of like why I think the Persona series is magical, is that like there's two main mechanics in Persona. Number one is dungeon crawling, and where you do your action, where you go with your party, you progress through a dungeon, you progress through the story via combat or whatever have you. And then the other is the more social element, where you can go on excursions with your friends, your confidants, explore the world, work on yourself, increase your stats, whatever have you. This balance of gameplay, although incredibly like different on and in depth on both sides, is the perfect mix of why Persona is so great. Where when you spend about an hour and a half going just through the dungeon, and you feel like usually you would walk away from a game, it's like, I need a break from it. The break from the game is going back to the other part of the game, which is living your life and like not doing any combat. So I found myself, especially playing it through a long session yesterday, balancing those two things. And I needed to play so many other games, and I could not stop. I swear to God, I was like up till like 2 a.m. or something going back. So I can save here and I can leave, but it's like, I'll go back to the dungeon. It's like, I'll talk to those folks at the ramen shop. But anyway, that's my high level like thoughts on Persona 3 Reload. I'm really enjoying it so far, and it's just there's just so much to say about this game.
So it is quite similar to Persona 5 in that in the break that you just explained, right? There's a dungeon part, and then there's a social skill part. And I guess like interacting with certain characters means you build, like you grow with them, and then I guess your, what do you call, like your resonance with them, or your compatibility goes up and things like that, or
your you work social link.
Social link, yeah. And then if you work at the ramen restaurant, you might get a boost in confidence or something like that, right? Is that what it's like?
Oh, you're nailing it. And that's why I think it's the beauty. It's like you play Persona 5, like the most of the world have played Persona 5. Persona 3 is such a solid entry, like re-entry point to the Persona franchise, where even though it's an older game, even though you can kind of feel very softly that it is a de-evolved version from Persona 5, like the loop, the like concept, the familiarity is all there. So like my short story recommendation is that if you play Persona 5 and you like it, you will 90% enjoy Persona 3. But then I'll just like drop a very specific thing about, here's the biggest thing Persona 3 does better than Persona 5, which I think like flips it on it, is that there's a specific feature called the rewind feature. So whenever you're in Persona 5, let me tell you, Rino, how many times has this happened to you? You're trying to further your relationship with An, and then you click the wrong button, and then she actually hates what you just said. And then I'm like, no, that's not what it's like. I have to go through the save files. I haven't saved in 2 hours. Do I go back 2 hours and try to reload my save all the way to get up to that moment with An again? I don't know. I'll just keep going, right? Persona 3 Reload has this awesome thing where you can actually rewind each of like the components of the day. So you can go back like a couple of days if you miss a dialogue option or you make the wrong decision or you decide you actually wanted to do something else with your time. And it's such a lifesaver because, again, it expedites the entire experience. It ensures that you don't have to go through multiple, well, for the most part, multiple playthroughs, but it just streamlines the Persona experience. And I love it.
You know where they got that from?
Don't. Please tell me. Please.
You know that old Adam Sandler movie called Click?
Oh my God. I thought you were going to make a Danganronpa reference. I'm so glad you made an Adam Sandler reference instead.
Instantly, because we don't have to get into it, but the movie is based around that, where he's got like a television control, and when you said like rewind, he literally does that. I think like he'll like punch a guy just because to get his frustration out, and like, rewind and then like, save and like, come back to that. But I can see how that would be so much better in visual novels where people really want to experience every branching narrative, right? Instead of making like 10 save files, you just kind of like, oh, let's rewind.
Yeah, exactly. You know, this isn't the first time we talked about Click on this podcast, right?
Like, no, I don't think it's
old listeners of the 20M podcast, like go back, find the episode in which we talked about Adam Sandler movies and specifically Click.
Yeah,
but you know, on your note of references though, just to like kind of connect the two dots there, is that I don't know if I'm crazy. And Rino, I just want to ask you, what's my favorite anime of all time? What's my favorite form of art that I've ever consumed of all time next to Kingdom Hearts?
I don't know. Probably Gundam.
Gundam? What the heck is wrong? That's the most offensive.
The other mecha.
You're being so facetious right now. Evangelion. And I try not to connect everything back to Evangelion, but I just think Evangelion is life and Evangelion is everything that we surround ourselves around. But it's so interesting how when I was playing through the first like couple hours of Persona 3 Reload, I feel like it's very Evangelion. And then I'm curious, it's like, how many references does Persona 3 have to Evangelion? Because I'll tell you, the first time you unlock your persona with your main character, you go through like the emo, you shoot yourself, and then the persona appears, right? When I say that the persona does an Eva Unit 1, I mean it. Where the persona, like, first you have a normal persona, and then the under persona crawls out of that body. And essentially to me, and this is like a really niche Neon Genesis Evangelion reference, but it's like when Eva Unit 1 goes berserk, and you find out that there's like something under the shell of the Eva. And then the second thing is that like you could just tell that they were so inspired by Evangelion, because even in that battle, if I'm not mistaken, your persona rips off the arm of the other shadow, if you will, and like swings it around. And I'm like, that's the first battle of Evangelion. And then I was like, am I crazy? I'm not the only one that thinks about this, right? I looked on Reddit, Rena. I looked this up on Reddit, and the Reddit comments have confirmed that there are multiple Evangelion references in this. But I'm curious to see what else is there. But also in tone and in story, and it's very emo and very depressing. But I think it's just so cool when you have like media reference other.
I'm gonna find the Reddit post that says they reference Adam Sandler's movie and to validate my perspective. No, but that's really cool. I haven't experienced it myself, but I can see. I mean, everything is an Eva reference at this point. So I think I'm glad for Eva / Persona fans like yourself. One last thing I kind of wanted to ask, like, two things. So firstly, the UI. Did you want to like touch upon it? Because I do see a lot of conversation about how amazing it is.
Yeah, I think the question on the table, like, is Persona 3 Reload, or does Persona have the best UI UX in video games? And to that, I don't know. I actually don't know. but what I will say is that the UI in Persona is just so cool. And if there was like an Emmy category, I think there is at DICE, if I'm not mistaken, and some award shows, like the Persona team needs to win all of these awards. Because when I say it's so cool, there's always a smile on my face when you realize that the like motion of a transition screen is actually incredibly artistic or is incredibly detailed. And as somebody who like maybe loves to deconstruct, like, you know, in film where it's like you see how they make a shot or how they film something or move stuff around or add VFX or whatever, I'm trying to do the same thing in Persona. And when you start realizing how much work goes into simple motion graphics, simple transitions, even combat is just obscenely high level. Like it feels like there's a 50-person team working on the visuals that are, again, more of the UI aspects of it. I love, again, walking through the days, you see the moon shift because the moon plays a really like big part in the game, and the fact that you can see like the time it, like if it's a full moon or if it's not a full moon, and all of that shifts within the menu as well. Even opening up, pressing triangle, and you're seeing things move around. It's just the most, again, overstimulating, but it's all based in logic. Like it's not designed for design's sake. It's designed with purpose, and every small detail and every small minutia in the UI helps tell the story of Persona or helps give you context of where you are in the world, what you're doing right now, and it just sucks you in completely. So yeah, I don't think it's a hot take. Like from what you have seen, how do you feel about the UI? How do you feel about the theme? Even with Persona 5, like what do you touch on this?
I think like with Persona 5 before I started playing, but obviously there's a lot of memes online, so I've seen like gameplay footage and stuff. I was a bit confused that people said this was like the best UI because it just looked really chaotic. But then when you use it, like it does feel intuitive. So I think that's really cool because for a lot of RPGs of a similar genre, they just try to like streamline things, like make it really clean, make it really easy to understand, which is, you know, a very safe and obviously a very usable approach. But then obviously I can't comment on Persona 3 Reload because I haven't played it yet, but I've seen the menu screen and it looks really dynamic, really interesting, but it doesn't seem to, like you said, like it's not designed for design's sake. There's like design and function built into it. And it is great that it can evoke like something as simple as a menu screen, which is the screen that we all see as soon as you boot up the game, like evokes such joy or such happiness when people sort of like open it up. It's like, oh, it's Persona. Like I think that is very cool.
Yeah, it's Persona. It's Persona.
Yeah.
Would you had another thing you wanted to touch on before we close up on Persona?
Yeah, it was just a quick note about the voice acting. Are you playing with English voice acting?
Oh, great question. I love how I think you can choose between English and Japanese. Yeah, in my version. I'm playing in English, and I'm going to tell you a story that I think is very funny to you and to us here on the podcast. But the voice acting is awesome. Most things are voiced, or important scenes are voiced as per usual. But it's so Persona 5 where you just hear them chime in with like their gasps or their like one sentence things as you read dialogue, and it's the perfect mix. But Rino, let me tell you, there's this one specific character in the game called Akihiko Sanada, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And the entire playthrough, I'm like, who is this? It's just bothering me so much. It's like at the back of my mind, I'm like, it can't be Matt Mercer, right? Like it's like, and then I go through the list of all the voice actors who I'm like usually accustomed to in video games. Like, who the heck is this? Like this can't be from this game. And it bothered me so much, right? I flipping realized I looked it up. It's Alejandro Zab. And I've been hearing Jing Yuan's voice in my head throughout this entire like playthrough of Persona 3 Reload so far, and it is flipping magical. Like when I say like his voice is so iconic, it's kind of ironic that I didn't get it at first. Like I didn't realize at first, but oh my god, what a flipping voice actor, and also what a like amazing synergistic thing where you can take that character of Jing Yuan, but also apply similar mannerisms to Akihiko, and it totally worked out.
He's I mean, you wouldn't know this one, but he's also a Sino in Genshin Impact. So he really has a lot of range. Like even between Sino and Jingyun, they're very different. And then I haven't played again P3R, but another layer of a different character. But yeah, I can see that. Jingyun's lines are very iconic. I will say that.
Yeah, and once I realized, I was literally thinking, it's like, oh my god, he just says this kind of thing in this game, I would lose it, you know, because Jingyun's like the character I think I've doubled down on most in
same.
Star Rail.
He's all I have.
Yep.
He's all I have.
He's all I have. Alejandro Zab. That's all I have.
You're all I have, Meg.
Please. Fix me, please. But yeah, that's all I have so far on Persona 3. Mm-hmm. I can't wait for you to get into Persona 3 Reload. And I can't wait to cover more on the podcast as we go through it. I think I am going to finish this game. I know it's a hefty game. I think I am going to finish this game. But yeah, I'm really happy this is out.
Yeah, that's awesome. But other stuff that's been happening this week besides the release of P3R is Steam Next Fest, right? It's like, I mean, talk to me about your experience. I get like for those who don't know, Steam Next Fest is just this massive like digital festival on Steam. I guess tons of games put out their demos and they get like many opportunities with Steam to showcase. So it's great marketing for a lot of indie games in particular. And we've been trying to try out a few demos. I have only played ones that I've worked on. We'll get into that later, but what have you been playing, Arief, for Next Fest?
Yeah, I haven't put as much time into Steam Next Fest, but I love it. Again, my high level thing on Steam Next Fest is that it's such a great initiative to showcase independent games and games that are like about to be tested out into the market. And I just love that there's a culture around making sure that your demo is out for Steam Next Fest for indies. Like it just reminds me of that E3 crunch, right? Where it's like AAA developers shove all their resources to make sure their E3 demos are great. I'm sure the same is for indie devs with Steam Next Fest. But when I tell you, like, I had 20 games on my list when I first looked through all the recommendations, and it obviously had to be like boiled down further and further. that's a testament to where the indie space is right now and how exciting it is a time to play independent games. So I guess specifically, so I played 2 games. The first game is called C.A.R.D.S RPG, the Misty Battlefield, and I got this because I saw you tweet about it, but did not tell you. Like, I didn't tell you I played it until literally this morning.
Yeah.
So I want to get into this one a little bit, but I understand that you also work with the developers for
Yeah.
this title.
Yeah, I did. So just a disclaimer so that all things are fair and everything is disclosed to everyone. So I have been working with the developers, Acquire, to help them with their PR, marketing, community, on a couple of their titles, but I guess the main one has been C.A.R.D.S RPG, The Misty Battlefield. So you can see me, I guess, as Nexus ended by the time.
No, you're on right now. Literally on Steam, if you pull it up, you're on right now as they're on their live stream.
Yeah, so I did the live stream recording for C.A.R.D.S, which is their main title that they're pushing right now. And there's another title later on that we can chat about. I guess it's called Scars of Mars. So I also did the stream for that. And just a quick note on the stream, like, I don't know if this is some kind of industry secret that nobody seems to realize, but is actually out in the open. But the streams are not live, people. they're not live. They say that they're live, but they're not. And you can tell because it's on a loop. But a lot of people don't. In just from this experience, I realized a lot of people don't know because there's a chat function. And one of my community members, really sweet person who went to try and support me because I say, hey, I'm going to be on the stream. And they were chatting. And then after that, they DM'd me in Discord like, hey, you didn't reply to anything I said. I was like, it's not live. And he's like, oh, okay. Because I was wondering why you were going for 12 hours. I'm like... saying the same things over and over again. But yeah, that's just a little funny thing about that. But no, I'm really glad you got to check it out. What did you think about C.A.R.D.S?
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. Like, it's Acquire are the developers of Octopath Traveler. I haven't played Octopath 2, but that, like, again, was one of the most underrated. Like, I feel like snubbed game at the award season towards the end of the year last year. So people love Octopath. People love Octopath 2. I love the first Octopath. But I told you this morning, literally when we were prepping for this show, I was like, I cannot believe you did not send me this game personally because this is such a me game. It's a like Final Fantasy-esque kind of like, I don't know, medieval fantasy type setting. It's got cards. It's got a turn-based battle system. And it's so flippin' gorgeous. Like, this is such a me game, but the best way I can describe it, and I'm sure there'll be some footage on our B-roll right now, right? This game to me is Fire Emblem meets Marvel's Midnight Suns. And I love those two properties, whereby the Fire Emblem aspect comes in the, like, fantasy JRPG type style. Obviously the the system in which, like, you're moving troops through the battlefield and then, like, initiating battles according to the troops and then leveling up those troops, etc., right? And then you have multiple characters with different classes, and then it mixes this, like, aspect of the most recent card game that I played, which was Midnight Suns, one of the best games of a couple of years ago, where you just have a deck-based system that allows you to defend, block, do special buffs, but it's all turn-based and it's all timed as well. And the combination of these things are awesome. I think the last game that I played that reminded me of, that were in this relative vertical was Voice of Cards by Square Enix and the Nier developers. Mm-hmm. And that was an awesome game, but I feel like if this, like, steers the ship in the right direction and they land the ship and they deliver on story and they deliver on mechanics and elevate the gameplay as you go on, this has the potential to be one of my favorite, like, strategy card games that I've played. So I am so into it. Like, I'm so surprised how polished it is from a demo standpoint as well. I'm just, like, bewildered by how great that experience was.
It's, like, really refreshing and great to hear that, because I guess, like, I've been working with the devs for just not that long, just maybe like a few months now, and so I've seen, like, various iterations, and I do think the latest one is quite good. Obviously, since I recorded it, I have to play the entire time. I guess, yeah, a lot of people do talk about how it reminds them of Fire Emblem, and I was waiting for the Fire Emblem meets what the meets was going to be, because some people say Slay the Spire, but then there's so many card games right now as well, right? So it's like, Midnight Suns or, like, any other sort of card game that's quite prevalent in the zeitgeist right now. One little reference that I will drop here, which is, like, public knowledge, but I think a lot of people miss it. I think it just depends on the order you play. There's some really, really great Japanese voice actors involved in the game, like some really prolific ones. I think the main character is, like, a captain. So Vel is the main captain, but then she's got, like, a second in command. I can't remember his name. but it's a voice actor for Aqua from Oshinoko. So
Oh wow.
yeah, really cool.
Is that the
Little
Leon character?
Leon, yeah. So Leon's voiced by the same Japanese voice actor as Aqua from Oshinoko. So quite I mean the cast is of caliber. I really hope that kind of comes through a bit more. But yeah, no. Awesome. Thanks for playing.
Yeah, again, just like I did not
Honestly, I had no idea. I was like,
yeah, no, and I just think it's just so I'm just so angry you didn't tell me about it. It's such a me game. Like I flipping we'll see where it goes and you know what else I see from the game. But like it's so me. I just like do more card games. Do more card games.
Cards are fun. Cards are definitely very fun. What's the other game you played for Next Fest?
I played completely on the other end of the spectrum. I played a game called Botany Manor. And I saw people tweet about this, and mostly because the visual style reminded me so much of, you know, Superliminal or What Remains of Edith Finch as well. And it, I almost cried.
You almost cried.
Yeah, I almost cried.
Demo.
I think I've been having a rough week, and it's one of those really wholesome, beautiful games. And I guess the long story short of Botany Manor is that you play as a person who is looking to take care of this manor that is overrun by flora. And yeah,
it's not Let's Build a Zoo.
Yeah,
people.
exactly. Like elks like jumping through the manor or whatever. But by a lot of like trees and flowers and all that kind of stuff. But the whole purpose of the game is that you want to build this like encyclopedia of all the plants that you are trying to grow, and each plant is basically a different puzzle to solve. So the first one, just to like spoil a little bit of the first level, is that like you get the seed of the plant, and then you get clues all around the room, and the plant is supposed to take away the mist and the fog of the room that you're in. So you have to find a way to grow that plant successfully based on all the context clues. So like what temperature the soil has to be, how much water, like not how much water, but like where you place it, all that kind of stuff, right? So the puzzles are actually pretty intuitive, but I also love its design. It's just so beautiful and it's so wholesome. And I think the moment where that made me like tear up a little bit is that like I love when video games integrate music in not just moments, but the everyday of a video. So for example, when you're moving through the world, I think if you pick up a certain thing, the music escalates and it like really, and you can tell that it's like a important moment. But even like when you're walking through, there was this moment where there's just one guitar strum. And it was playing for like 5 minutes because I was doing stupid stuff like walking around the level and trying to just like navigate. And it's like, ooh, is there a hidden thing here? But it's just one guitar strum the entire time. And then once I passed through the door, that one guitar strum became a whole like almost orchestral piece, and it really crescendoed as I saw the manor. And I'm like, that's beautiful. That's art. That's a way to like elevate video games. It's not just puzzles. It's not just gameplay. It's video games that is an eclectic medium. And I feel like Botany Manor kind of shows it off in that way. But again, it's just such a wholesome game. It's such a nice break from Persona 3 where you're shooting yourself in the head and everything's dark and it's like the midnight hour and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really looking forward to Botany Manor. Have you taken a look at that game?
Yeah, so I actually stumbled upon it sometime last year. I can't remember what I was covering. I think it got highlighted in one of the events, either one of the PAXs or something, and I was looking into it. But I personally haven't played the demo yet. But when I saw the trailer and all of that, I was really intrigued because I think in your exploration of the manor, correct me if I'm wrong, but like you learn about yourself as well. Like you're playing the role of a retired botanist. Like she has a name and everything. So I think in your discovery of the manor, you find out like bits about her career, and they kind of alluded that she was facing some challenges as like maybe a woman of science. So I don't know if that kind of unfolds a bit more in the full game. And I get the wholesome vibes. I see exactly what you mean. Like it's really cute and beautiful and serene. But the fact that it's so empty, at least in the trailer and in the screenshot, gives us a slight bit of like it makes me a little bit unsettled. And I don't know if sounds like that might be intentional because it also alludes to, you know, talking about her career, which might not have been super linear. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think again the story, and maybe because like I just haven't played enough to like fully capture it, because it's very environmental storytelling. It's very like, you know, I'll do two references, right? Like it's very BioShock, it's very Gone Home, it's like very much in that vertical. But yeah, I think there might be some family dynamics that you uncover as well. But you're right. I was so afraid it was. I was actually really nervous it was going to be a Gone Home, and I don't want to spoil Gone Home for people because that's one of my favorite games of all time. Just play that game. Like it's not that long. It's amazing, but there's that feeling where like, is this a horror game? Like, am I doing this? Are they like trying to like pull the rug from under me? So I had to look it up. I had to look up the full trailer because I didn't look at anything. I just played the demo instantly. And I'm like, okay, I think we're good. Like, I think we're okay. So
I think this is a cute game about flowers.
Yes, exactly. but again, like I love that about the medium, where there's like pre-existing things that they can play with. But there could be something a little bit darker here. But I'm just really looking forward to like what they actually say with this game, because it seems like the team has a lot of talent behind them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I was going to mention another game, but I completely forgot what it's called, so I have to bring it up next time. But I feel like I'm starting to see it's the one where it's like about it's a wholesome game about death. I think it's called Birth. It's the one where there's like a lot of taxidermy and skeletons of like animals and stuff. Yeah, it's called Birth. It's like a cozy game that deals with serious topics. So I feel like I wonder if wholesome is getting like another sub niche under it, which is like wholesome games with a bit of like an uncanny feeling, or wholesome games with a side of trauma. I'm not sure, but very very interesting games coming out these days.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, again, this is the beauty of Steam Next Fest. It's like, go try games that you have not been exposed to before. Like, I didn't look up. There's like a couple other games I really want to cram in. You're right, actually, to your earlier point. I think Steam Next Fest might be over by the time this episode airs. So you might not be live right now on the Acquire page. But I know some games, they have demos that go beyond. But like, there's something that I think you saw on Twitter. Like, just talk about Steam Next Fest and indie games in general. One of my favorite developers here in Malaysia, Cellar Vault Games, who does the Paper Ghost stories, they released a tweet that like, I wouldn't say blew up, but like had some pretty solid traction, where they said, hey, streamers in Southeast Asia and Malaysia, if you're looking to stream their upcoming game, Paper Ghost Stories Third Eye Open, we not only have an English language like version, we have a broken English like version, which is so Southeast Asian, because like, again, the way that we speak English in the region is definitely there are obviously moments where it's totally fine, but the culture kind of elicits this aspect of broken English where it's like somewhat English, it's not perfect, but you totally get what they're saying. And that's the most Southeast Asian thing ever. And the fact that they integrated that in a system in a game is just, come on. Like that's culture. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's like representation. So I haven't played that yet, but I saw some people tweet about that. You saw that though, right?
I saw that tweet. Yeah, for sure. It was really, really cute. And it reminded me of like, I think I switched like 15 years. Facebook had like a pirate language at one time where you could toggle that on. It was just like the most ridiculous thing. But I love that this is like leaning into even more so, because the game is already inherently very cultural. You know, we talked about this. It was in the Malaysia Direct too, about, you know, the usage of like Jaws paper and the haunted ghost stories of Southeast Asia. So love that they're coming almost full circle with the language thing. I'm excited to see if we can understand it.
Yeah, Benny's just trying to screw with me. He's like, Arief, you will not understand this entire game. And that's the point. Yeah. No, I'm really excited. What is I know you've been working a lot for Steam Next Fest and all that kind of stuff, but have you played anything on your side? I know this is kind of like a festive season. It's like we're all kind of toned down for Lunar New Year, for Chinese New Year. What's been on your plate, Ria?
It's like a meme at this point, right? The number of times I bring this up, and I always say like, oh, I don't like the game that much, but then it's like all I talk about every episode. But I am playing Genshin Impact's Lantern Rite. I do think this is the best time of the year to be a Genshin player, and I was trying to recruit more Genshin players in our little friend group chat. Was not successful. The Lantern Rite for Genshin Impact is basically the in-game celebration of Lunar New Year. That's just a name for it. So every year they do it. And I do feel like it's the best update all the time. They put so much energy into making really fun mini games. The story, I think, can be hit or miss. This year's one seems quite good. It's usually just like a side, like kind of like a side quest. You go back to Liyue. Someone out there, like the whole city is kind of putting together the celebration of it. And somewhere along the line, someone's like, "Oh, please help me deliver some boxes of fireworks or something." It's not that deep, but the mini games that go along are really cute. And I think this time, just like, it's really, really stunning visually. And for me, one of my favorite parts of Lunar New Year is the lion dance. I mean, you've probably seen a bunch, Arief, like it's inescapable, like, you know, shopping malls in Malaysia, Chinese restaurants, people, maybe if you have like a company, like you'll invite the lion dance, because the symbolism behind that is it scares away like the bad, evil, and the omens, and sort of like brings the festive period, right? So right now in Genshin, there's a new 4-star character. His name is Kaming. and he's a lion. I think he has a day job of some kind of logistics person, but he's a lion dance dude, like one of the lion dancers. Like, look, it's tough. Okay, you can't be. It's a very seasonal career.
Yeah. No, I just think it's awesome. It's like, yeah, he's just doing HR management for his day job, but in Lunar New Year season, like he's flipping the lion dancer.
Yeah. So he's so cool. Like he's got like when he like bursts his animation, he pulls out like a lion dance hit, and it's like neon colored. It's really festive. It's really fun. And I think the second thing, which I feel particularly warm to because of my particular kind of Chinese background is so gaming is like a Cantonese pronunciation of the name. A lot of people, a lot of memes online because it reads like gaming. And Hoyoverse, the way that they do their Chinese character names, they don't put a space between them unless it's like a family name. So everyone else has like Yunjin is like Yunjin, like one word, and so on and so forth. So his name is Gaming as in his like actual first name. Which is Cantonese. And then like some of the mini games I realized they are also using Cantonese phrasing. So there's a specific mini game where there's like waves of fire that kind of emit towards you every so often. And they call it the wok hei, which in Cantonese is the breath of the wok. And typically, if you're eating in Malaysia, like a really good char kway teow has wok hei because it's been cooked on a really good wok with really high heat. You can't replicate that at home. They always talk about the wok hei if you go to like a Chinese restaurant. So little things like that surprise me, and it really talks to how dedicated Hoyo is to portraying different. They're obviously specialists when it comes to Chinese culture posts, but these are specific like subcultures I think that go under the Chinese umbrella, which obviously makes other players feel very included. So it's been really fun. I do recommend it if you feel like it.
Yeah, and I just love the this like Chinese New Year season. Again, Chinese developer totally makes sense for their demographic, for their own like culture as well. But one of the moments that I like respected you as a person, it's not all the other stuff that you've been doing over like this is like early you and I's like friendship was when you told me about the piece that you did about Chinese New Year and Genshin, about bringing your family together. And like that's like one of my favorite pieces that you've ever written. If y'all that are listening to the 20M podcast right now, if y'all are listening to this right now, have not read that piece, it is amazing. It's beautiful. It's awesome. And that's the power of video games. But I just love that this like live service game, right? A game that you can always come back to, always make sure that these festivities can be experienced for people as well. And although it might not be as personal and momentous this year, the fact that you are talking about it on here to me is just like, I don't know, there's something to it.
No, it is really awesome. And I guess a quick summary for the people who didn't know about that was like the first time I played Genshin was obviously in the middle of the pandemic, and everything was shut. I couldn't go home. I was stuck in Japan. And then Genshin comes along. I've never played a live service game by a Chinese developer before. I didn't really understand anything. I just turned on the game one day. I was like, bam, it's Chinese New Year in the game, Lunar New Year. And I was like, what? And I was definitely super overwhelmed, super happy, overjoyed. And I do have family members who they don't play as much anymore, but they used to play a lot back then. And we would play in the game almost like we were celebrating Lunar New Year together. I wish my uncle happy Lunar New Year in the game before actually speaking to him in person, things like that. It was definitely a very special moment in time, and maybe not as relevant today in 2024 where we're lucky that we can travel, we're lucky that we can go and see friends and spend time together, but I'll always remember that. And I think for that reason, no matter what happens, like Genshin is just a game that I do go to for comfort every so often.
Yep. Yeah. Like we're always gonna cover Hoyoverse on this podcast. But
sorry, folks. No, but that's
but truly, that's flipping awesome.
Yeah. All right, I think that kind of brings us to the end of this episode. A little bit short, but very condensed. I think we talked about 4 or 5 games in this episode. Really, really happy, and can't wait to get to know your Persona 3 progression as we move on in the next few episodes, Arief.
E3P, Persona 3 progression, not portable.
I was like, is that a new?
I don't know. I was like P3R. I was just like, the guides are all messed up because you have to put P3R versus. I'm excited as well.
Yeah, it's very big in Japan. I don't know if we'll have time to drop a little reference, but there's like Roppongi Hills is a massive shopping mall, really, and not just like massive, but like bougie as well, like really fancy, like where the high end luxury happens. And for some reason, like there's a massive Persona 3 reload, like not even like a billboard. It's like it's like several floors of like glass windows, and then they've like blocked out the glass so that it's just like a mosaic of Persona 3 Reload. I was like, wow, at Roppongi Hills. And then one of my friends tweeted, I think this was at Wendy's, and it was like, what's wrong? You're not touching your Persona 3 Reload French fries. It's just like, I assume it's just a brown bag of normal French fries, but on the front is like Persona 3 Reload.
Yeah, I've seen both those things, and again, Persona 3 is just taken over. It's just yeah. But again, play your AAA games, play your indie games, celebrate the entire ecosystem. It's flipping beautiful out there. Go play some games.
Yeah. That brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks everyone for listening or watching. And if you would like more, we had a pretty intense episode last week where we talked about Honkai Star Rail 2.0. We talked about the new Ace Attorney, and then what else? We released an episode with Ajmi.
Yep. Exactly. And again, if you are watching, or if you haven't watched our shorts content yet, I mean, we released a video. I mean, we talked about this last week, but like getting stuck in the elevator with Sonic the Hedgehog, going to the Full Metal Alchemist exhibit.
Just casually. All in the day's life for Arief.
Yeah, exactly. Chibi Alphonse can take my life, like that sounded really dark. I meant like, I guess that makes sense in the Full Metal Alchemist kind of lore, but I meant like take me out.
Watch the short.
Just watch the short.
It'll make sense.
Okay, bye, folks.
All right, thanks, everybody. Bye.